Welcome to our channel, and here we dive into the most creepy, exciting, and mystical stories that make your blood run cold. If you like stories that make you freeze with fear and keep you in suspense until the last minute, come to the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos, and turn on notifications to keep up to date with all our follow-up stories. I never thought that one day I would find myself in a situation that would even be unbearable to remember. But here I am telling you about what happened a few years ago, and I still can't forget this horror. I was 23 at the time. I worked in a small construction team. We took on various projects, and one day we received a task to clean up and prepare for the demolition of an old, long-abandoned building. It turned out that it was a morgue that closed back in the 90s, when a new medical center with modern equipment built nearby. When we first arrived at the site, the building looked like a typical abandoned structure. The windows were boarded up, doors were broken, and dense thickets grew around the building. No one seemed to have set foot there in decades. We laughed and joked at each other, but we all had a strange feeling inside. It was as if something in this place was preventing us from breathing calmly. On the first day, we started by inspecting the building and making a work. It was dark and damp inside. The walls were covered with mold, and the air was saturated with a heavy, musty smell. We even found old tools that someone had left there, as if they had run away in a hurry. But what bothered us the most was the ringing silence. Even birds didn't fly into the area, as if they were avoiding it. On the second day, our team began dismantling the equipment and clearing the premises. We had to take out the old catalogs for the bodies, dismantle the old tiles, and take an inventory of the objects found. Further we went into the building, the worse our condition became. One of the guys, Tom, started complaining of a headache and strange chest sensations. We chalked it up to moldy air. Gradually it became clear that it wasn't just that. A couple of days later we reached the basement. It was the freezer compartment where the bodies used to be stored. Everything inside was covered with rust, and the cold rooms looked more like tombs. We were already at the limit. Even just being in this room was unpleasant. But I had to finish the job. One of our guys, Matt, opened one of the old cameras to check if there was anything left. The camera gave way with a creak, and a terrible smell escaped from inside. We held our noses and took a step back, but Matt didn't immediately close the door. Instead, he stood staring inside with an expression of utter horror on his face. We ran up to him, thinking he was sick. Matt pointed inside the cell. A single white sheet of paper lay on the dirty, rusty floor. Nothing special at first glance, but for some reason it felt really cold. We decided not to touch him, and just closed the camera, trying to forget about it as soon as possible. But the next day the situation worsened. Matt didn't show up for work. We tried to call him, but his phone was silent. On the second day of his absence, we went to his house. The door was open. Inside there is a rout. Furniture is overturned, things are scattered all over the house. And Matt himself, he was lying on the bed as if he was asleep, but his eyes were open and glazed. There was an expression of utter horror on his face, and his hand was clutching the very piece of paper we saw in the camera. Do you know what I haven't said yet? That this story doesn't end at the moment when we found Matt dead. Would you believe it? But there, in the abandoned morgue, there was something much more creepy than just a cold piece of paper. After we found Matt, everyone in our team was in shock. Police, of course, came and, as always, soon closed the case, a death from a heart attack. But we knew something was wrong. We continued to work, but now with undisguised fear and unwillingness to return to that building. One night, when I returned to the place to check some documents, I noticed that one of the garbage trucks was in a strange position. Realizing that someone had climbed inside again, I decided to go take a look. When I entered the morgue, I found that someone was doing their work on the second floor. Going up the stairs, came across a small room hidden behind an old wardrobe. The room was filled with old equipment and wires that looked not like medical devices, but like something from a laboratory. I noticed several containers labeled radioactive material. This was strange, considering that no modern radiological devices were used there. The laboratory instruments in this room covered with dust, but they looked dangerous. Fear gripped me when I realized that this morgue was not only used for storing bodies. It could also be part of some kind of experiment or research conducted in secret. I quickly rushed out of the room and called the local radiation safety authorities. It turned out that there were indeed traces of radiation, and a full investigation had to be carried out in the building. And then came another unexpected twist. During the radiation check, experts discovered hidden tunnels under the building, leading to neighboring houses. These tunnels were used not only for evacuation, but also for transporting something or someone. When the police began to explore these tunnels, they found not only radiation equipment, but also creepy records, photographs, and documents indicating strange medical experiments and the study of human fear. My team and I heard the news about these finds on the day the morgue was officially closed for demolition. The toilets that we thought were forgotten were equipped with surveillance cameras. All this indicated that the place was being used as a secret laboratory for violent experiments aimed at studying human reactions to fear and stress. That's not all. One of the local residents told the police that a few years ago, he saw a strange man who often appeared in the area. He was untidy and always carried a black suitcase with him. Later, it turned out that this man was an isolated maniac who used the old building as his hideout. He conducted his own highly illegal experiments to study people's fear and pain. It is known that he captured random passersby and used them in his research until he disappeared without a trace. The crew and I couldn't believe our eyes when the police showed us some evidence. Some of these gruesome finds were sent to the crime lab. We realized that this was just the tip of the iceberg. After these events, the building was completely demolished. However, even now, when I think about those days, I feel goosebumps running down my spine. It was all so creepy and unfair that it's hard to believe that such things can happen. If only we knew what we were going to stumble upon in that abandoned morgue. But it's all over now. Remains only for